And welcome to um, April 15th meeting of the CRTPA Board. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I understand we have a quorum, but we welcome any who will join us as they join us. Good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon.
All right. Yes, sir. Oh, you said good afternoon. Okay, I thought you were trying to get my attention. All right. So we have any agenda modifications? Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
roll call, thank you. I need to print this big enough so I
Commissioner O'Keefe,
Here.
Commissioner Minor,
Here.
Commissioner Matlow,
Here.
Commissioner Richardson,
Here.
Commissioner Williams-Cox,
can. Here.
Commissioner Maddox, that is everybody.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Executive Director, do we have any agenda modifications?
No, ma'am.
All right. Do we have any public comments on items not appearing on the agenda? All right, thank you. So we'll now go to the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to approve consent. Real quick, actually, full item 4E for a little bit of clarification.
4E, okay.
Move it to item 5.
Item 4E will move to item 5.
So I'll amend my motion to approve consent with the exception of 4E.
Okay. Okay, it's been properly moved and second to accept the consent agenda with the necessary modifications. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 5, which is CRTPA audit contract that was just pulled from the consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am. Just want to clarify, we're still working on that as far as the contract, and just let everybody know that it would be approved pending final legal review. And I don't know if Mr. Attorney wants to add anything to that.
Board members, typically what you have in your packet is an audit letter from the auditors for signing, which we normally sign, but we also have a contract with them. And the terms in the contract are not in the audit letter. For instance, Chapter 119 requirement, termination provisions, and the like. So we normally have that as a part of it, and then we create a hierarchy, which is the contract that we generate, the RFP, and then their engagement. And so in the past, and as Executive Director and I discussed, we have asked for approval of the board pending finalization. These are standard contracts. As you know, I've been here a number of years, so there's really nothing new about it. We just need to finalize. So we're asking for approval for the board to allow it to be executed prior to the next meeting upon completion.
So that is the action we need to take to agree to approve it
Yes, ma'am.
before the next meeting?
You can approve it. You can approve it today, and then we'll sign off on it once
Okay.
legal's finished.
Okay, everybody understands what we've been asked to do? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move, so moved as requested.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we do as has been instructed by the attorney that we would go ahead and approve and do what we need to do to finalize it before the next meeting. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much. We have item number 6. We have no roll call vote agenda items. Is that correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll move hurriedly on to CRTPA action.
Yes, ma'am. First up today is a CRTPA school safety study. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Burt. He's our project manager for this particular project.
Good afternoon, members. As you may recall from your January 21st retreat, you received an update on the CRTPA's school safety study. Subsequently, the report has actually been completed, and we are actually here today to seek your approval of the study. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Lindsay Slaughterback with KHA Consultants.
Good afternoon.
Hello, everyone. So nice to be here today. My name is Lindsay Slaughterback, Transportation Planner with Kimley Horn. So I was the consultant lead on this project and here today to kind of give that final update on the Take the Safe Route project that we did. I will keep it pretty short and sweet because you all got a pretty good update in January. And then if you all have any questions at the end, definitely happy to answer, and so is Greg. So as you all know, the Take the Safe Route project was done in 2 phases. So our first phase was that data collection, identifying stakeholders and desktop analysis to identify our top schools for moving to the second phase. The second phase was focused on site visits, doing an inventory of existing facilities and infrastructure out there, and then making recommendations for projects in the future. And throughout that whole process, we were working with stakeholders, so just wanted to make note of that. From the very beginning in November 2023, I believe, up till now, we've been engaging those stakeholders at the county level. So what has been completed? So essentially, this is just that last slide, but in a different format. But essentially, we did data collection, prioritized the schools based on a variety of different data points, mapped it, identified 12 schools throughout the region, did site visits, completed a technical memo of those site visits, coordinated with students, teachers, and then parents as well, and then pulled that all in together for a draft plan. So as you know, we evaluated all the public schools in the 3 counties, Wakulla, Leon, and Gadsden. And our final list after the desktop analysis and the data collection phase was these 12 schools. So there are 10 in Leon County. 2 of those are additional schools that we added afterwards just because they're co-located to a school that came up in our analysis. For example, it's Rudiger and then Raw. And then we had a school in Wakulla County and 1 in Gadsden County. And so you're probably wondering why it's so Leon heavy. The answer is that our data analysis was kind of skewed towards the residential density and population, of course. We just wanted to make sure that we were serving schools that needed the improvements. For example, some of our schools in Wakulla and Gadsden counties are serving large swaths of the county. And, you know, regardless of if there are a few students walking, most of the students will not be walking or biking. And so this is the new stuff that y'all haven't seen yet. And so we have a draft Take the Safe Route plan or report, as we're calling it. And so the idea behind this is that it's very implementation friendly, so our partners who are in charge of getting funds for these projects can keep moving things along and use this very easily. And so with that, we have right in the introduction of how to use this plan. And so we identified kind of these 4 groups of stakeholders or interested parties who may pursue projects, and that includes our local government partners, the school districts, parents and guardians, and then community members. And so we have kind of call outs to each section of the plan that would be appropriate for their purposes. And so, as I mentioned, our engagement was extremely stakeholder heavy. So we had in total 20 stakeholder agencies that were coordinated with during the project. We met with them, I believe, 4 times throughout, just to keep giving updates and get their feedback on where we were. So their job was really to provide that technical input and then give us kind of that information on the ground that maybe we didn't have as technical experts working in our different agencies. Okay, so for the stakeholder portion of this related to student travel tallies and parent surveys, I just want to caveat that while the numbers may seem kind of low, they actually are pretty good for a study like this. And the reason we were doing this was not really to support our kind of recommendations in the end. They were more to get our partners for implementation ready to apply for Safe Routes to School funding. So one of the requirements is the student travel tallies and the parent surveys. So the idea was that each of the schools would have the surveys done to go along with the application. But it doesn't take anything away from this study that we only had, for example, 200 or 327 student surveys. But I think still really great for backing up some of our observations and making sure that we kind of understood the movement patterns in general throughout the region. And so based on the student travel tallies, we determined that the majority of students are getting to and from school in a family vehicle, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. But we have all of this in the appendix, every single one of them. So if anybody wants to review that, it's there. So the parent surveys. So since we did 12 schools, maybe 200 to 400 students at each of those schools, 165 surveys again seems low, but I think it really did a good service to us in kind of highlighting some of those major concerns that parents are seeing and validating our observations. And so the major concerns really are that parents don't want their kids walking to and from school if it's too far away. They're concerned about traffic, speeding, and then safety of intersections and crossings, which really makes sense and was consistent with what we saw. So in the plan, for each of the schools, we have several project pages that identify some background information. You'll see the number of students, how many residential, or just generally what the residential density is around the school, and then the observations from our site visit. So we have those photos there as well, and then those are all related back to a map and a table to make sure that we're making recommendations specific to each of those locations and issues that we saw. And so those recommendations are then linked to this glossary of recommendations, we're calling it, but it's a toolkit. So the idea is that you kind of find your school, you look at those list of observations, match them to a project type, and then you can go to this recommendation section, pull this, and put it into a grant application if you so choose. And so the idea was just to keep it very simple. You'll see we have time frame, cost, and those are kind of related back to actual numbers and time frames. And so that, with the grant funding part, matches up to this matrix. And so we right now have 18 relevant grant opportunities, but in the event that you all adopt this, we're going to update it because there are a few now that the funding cycle's over or they've changed under the new administration, so we just want to make sure this is updated. But lots of opportunities for a lot of different types of partners to pursue funding. And so this is just kind of a little flow chart to show you kind of the idea behind. There's the observations, which are matched up to recommendations, which match up to that toolkit, and then the grant. So the idea is to be very A, B, C, D, and you have a grant application. Did I skip one? Okay, there we go. So in addition to those very specific school recommendations, we have some programmatic recommendations, and this is just related to things that we heard about during the entire process, and things that are not necessarily, something we want to recommend for each school specifically, but on the larger scale. We have bicycle and pedestrian safety education, heard a lot about that, saw a lot of need for that at the schools we evaluated. Community education, drop-off pickup, driveway etiquette, that was a big one. We saw a lot of cars in the bike lane or blocking entrances and exits for students, the enforcement piece, and then the student arrival and dismissal programming. And then an additional recommendation section, also short and sweet, is those systemic recommendations. So these can be done at the regional level, at the school district level, at each school, but generally speaking, across the board, we saw the need for enhanced crosswalks, bike infrastructure, ADA-compliant sidewalks, crossing guards, curb extensions, and then just making sure that projects that are in existing plans are kind of moving forward. And so with that, to end, just, I just want to highlight the fact that you all can be an advocate for safety. I know you are as members of this board. So it's just important to, keep this plan alive and moving forward. I know the last iteration of it is still being used by our implementation partners at the city and the county. So we're hoping this will keep things moving in the right direction. With that, any questions?
Commissioner,
Thank you. Some of the recommendations included programmatic changes with school pickup, drop-off. Does the plan already contemplate coordinating between CRTPA and the school board? Or did, in making the report, did y'all already speak with the school board?
So we had Lori Cox involved in a lot of our coordination with the schools, but we did hear this from the Technical Advisory Committee as well, is that it might be a good idea to bring this final draft, or I guess the final document to them and find ways to keep things moving forward. But we didn't really delve too deeply into the traffic patterns or like the movements related to that, but I think it would be a really good opportunity for the school districts to take a look at that at all of the schools.
Madam Chair, one of the things we talked about early on with the school board staff was we didn't really want to get involved in their car line setups because apparently we heard a couple of stories early on with a couple of schools where their safety guy and their principals were going round and around about how they had changed them. I think ours was more if anything was observed in the field when we were out doing field conditions, we would report that. But no, the direct answer is we purposefully stayed out of the, I'll call it car line configuration discussion.
That's very smart.
Any other questions? Thank you for the presentation. I have a question that it probably doesn't have any impact here, but school time and changing and all of that kind of stuff would have some impact perhaps on some of these things. 'Cause I know that's still being discussed when school starts for the different schools.
I tend to think not. I mean, probably, the earlier times when time shifts back and kids are walking to school in the dark is probably the biggest issue there. But I think, as you all know, the legislature is actually talking about rescinding the requirements they put in place a couple of years ago for later start times. But again, by and large, I don't think that it will.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I get, what we're talking about here is the safety of our children getting back and forth to school. And I think this should be an urgent matter for us to address. And so how do we go about making sure that that happens, that these projects and improvements are made as quickly as possible?
I think probably the biggest thing is working back, primarily with Leon County Public Works and the city's underground infrastructure or underground utilities departments. They're the ones that handle that. We've had extensive conversations with them, and sometimes with these, they'll go after safe routes to school money for new sidewalks. But a lot of what you see in the report are more kind of like, adding crosswalks or repainting crosswalks, adding signage and things like that. So a lot of these are fairly low cost
Low-hanging
improvements.
fruit, yeah. Okay. Well, like I said, I still want to make sure that we emphasize how urgent it is that we get these taken care of. Because even one life lost of one of our young people is one too many. And I can't emphasize enough that these need to be taken care of. It's going to address the health and safety of our young people as they go back and forth to school. So whatever we can do, kind of stress that urgency. Greg, I think we should certainly do that.
Certainly will.
Well, we start with approving take the safe route, safe access to school study is the recommended
Yes.
is the recommended action.
I would make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we accept the report has been presented to us. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much. So now, Greg, now that we have approved this, where does it go next?
Yeah.
Primarily, like I said, in terms of the implementation, it will go to the city and the county, I would say Public Works Department, underground utility.
What about school system? What about the school boards?
Most of these improvements, if not all of them, are outside the school grounds by and large. So that's going to be our most effective route, as you get to the Public Works Departments and all, and adding the signage, crosswalks, and things like that.
So do we need to at least make the school aware of this report?
Oh, yes.
And that there will be, as funding is available, that these things may be occurring in and around their school?
Yes, ma'am. And they reviewed the study. They were part of our technical team as well.
Okay, so we can let them know that it's been approved and, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Also, so if this is going to have to come back to us and several of our departments for these infrastructure improvements, I know soon we're going to be delving into our budget for the next fiscal year, and these will certainly have a budget impact on those departments. And so that should be part of our discussion.
I would think so, but by and large, other really than the sidewalks, most of these are fairly low cost. Again, where we're talking paint, signage, things like that. But we can have that conversation with the local agencies and see the best way they think to move these forward.
Okay.
By and large, I tend to think they would not have a significant budget impact, again, outside new sidewalks, things like
Yeah, because the sidewalks are,
that. Those are going
they're
to
expensive.
And if I can add,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
as Greg has said, with regards to the stakeholders committees, those actually included the local government, public works staff, and folks. And And then additionally, these are the same folks that are on our TAC Technical Advisory Committee. So they are quite aware of this, and we are actually working with them with regards to this study and some of the recommendations.
So at this point, we just need to let them know that it's been approved and go forward and do well. Okay. All right. Thank you. Moving on to item 7B, CRTPA Title 6 policy. Somebody was testing my Roman numerals. See if I
Yeah,
can count my Roman numerals, huh?
that's part of it.
Yeah.
I call it Title IX all the time. I don't know why. But
Yeah.
this is just an update of our existing Title VI policy, so I'm gonna hand it over to Suzanne. Did the update for us.
I actually, with the update to the public involvement plan, part of this whole effort was also this update to the Title VI plan, make sure that, again, it reflects all the current policies and requirements. And just as I got that in place, I heard from Federal Highway that it's shifting and they're not exactly sure, but I was good for now, and they will update me if with other policy changes are come out. But to that point, when I read through it, there were some questions that I could not answer. And if I didn't understand it as a Title VI coordinator, I knew I really needed to revisit it. The simple part was to separate it to a formal and informal process. Informal is what you call verbal and non-written, which confused me again. I would think they're the same. The way the process is contemplated is if you bring me a complaint verbally, I will acknowledge, document, but I will also come back to you and specifically say, do you want to provide a written complaint? The moment you say no, we have now affirmed that it's verbal and non-written. And that's really kind of the only distinction that I wanted to make clear in that plan. If we do receive a complaint, it goes immediately to District 3. Their Title VI coordinator handles it and funnels it to central office and to Federal Highway. For us, if we receive a complaint, we keep everybody in the loop, but we work with any complainant directly to try to rectify the situation. We have had no Title VI complaints in the past, but again, this just makes it clearer in terms of what the process is and what you do. And I'm just requesting, again, you reaffirm that Title VI statement, and thank you if you have any questions.
Okay, any questions? We will entertain a motion. It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept that we approve the update to the Title VI policy statement and plan. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, moving on to FDOT.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The department would like to update the CRTPA on a upcoming PD&E study that we have just awarded a contract on. This is at Capitol Circle in Mahan. We'll be looking at data collection efforts beginning early summer of this year, with the public outreach beginning toward the end of this calendar year. We'll be looking at opportunity to increase the level of service at that intersection. We'll be looking at all types of improvements, including elevated roadways if necessary. But as always, we'll have plenty of public outreach available and make sure we get the feelings of the community back as part of this study effort. And as this study progresses, we'll definitely bring updates to the CRTPA. And with that, that concludes the department's update.
And you say you're doing a study, so what can we expect to see at that intersection?
Well, at this intersection, you know, the level of service there is deficient, so we would look at adding capacity at that intersection. More likely than not, it will require additional right-of-way acquisition. We've got a couple of properties there that we really want to try to avoid the church in the northeast quadrant of the intersection. So we're going to be kind of creative as we look at opportunities to increase capacity there.
Meaning that we could have some increased lanes or sidewalks, bicycle lanes, or?
It would be increased lanes if we do everything at grade. If we do find a elevated roadway option that is tolerable to everyone, you wouldn't necessarily increase the lanes at grade. You elevate the elevated roadway, will handle some of the through movements. But again, all of that will be studied as part of that PD&E.
Okay.
but could
Okay.
possibly look
We would hope we could do better this go around.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure that anybody who's listening would know that something come in the future might be some, like you said, increased capacity and what that actually could mean. So that's why I was asking.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Matlow?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to say, in Tallahassee, we say flyover. Might let people know what we're talking about more than an elevated roadway.
I tried to slip it in, you had to, explain
I
it.
heard that elevated. I knew what that meant. Commissioner O'Keefe?
Thank you. For that study, is there any place that if citizens want to keep track of it, there's a public page or anything like that?
Yes, sir. Once we get that project kicked off and our consultants start doing the data collection, it will have a outward-facing website to provide information to the public, as well as we'll put all of our meeting documents out there, and the environmental documents as they're complete will be posted there.
Gotcha.
And it will be housed under our Northwest Florida Roads main website, but there will be a link directly to this study.
And that'll be later this summer because that's what the date is?
It'll actually be probably midsummer, because that's part of the initial data collection, is the consultant setting up that website.
Okay. Greg, can you make a note to notify us when that happens?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you for the update, Brian. We'll now go to our executive director's report.
Yes, ma'am. I just got a couple of three things here. First of all, I know some of you have seen this, but the USDOT actually issued a notice of funding opportunity for the Safe Streets for All program again this year. We are currently working on 2 applications, one that will be submitted by Leon County for the North Monroe Street project. And then if you recall, last year we submitted one for the CRTPA for a pedestrian safety study along West Tennessee Street from Monroe out to Enon Church Road. So we're working to update those applications from last year and hopefully have a little bit better luck this year. And looking at the program, there have been some changes due to the new administration and their direction they want to go with these. Just so you know, there's about $580 million available for implementation grants, which that's what would be applied for the North Monroe project, and then about just a tick over $400 million for the planning and demonstration, which we would try to get funding for the West Tennessee Street. Also, to let you all know, our statewide MPO Advisory Council meeting is actually here in Tallahassee next week in these very chambers. That's the first time the MPOAC has met up here in about 10 years. So just to let you all know, we'll send out some information on that. Any are interested in stopping by. And finally, if you recall, last year or the year before, we had worked with the department to make some changes to the Strategic Intermodal System, or SIS designation. That's one of the issues that we face on a lot of our capacity projects are not on the SIS system. If you'll recall, central office in the district agreed to change and put the project that Brian was referring to at Capitol Circle and Mahan Drive as part of the SIS system. One of the things we initially asked for was Capitol Circle Northwest from I-10 around to US 27. It didn't make it that time. Central office said that they would consider it once the Amazon facility came online. So with that facility now online and the imminent construction of Buc-ee's or wherever that's at in the process, we're going to revisit that with central office in the district and ask them to reconsider putting Capitol Circle Northwest on the SIS and hopefully open up some funding opportunities to move that project along. Madam Chair.
September meeting date.
Oh, thank you. It's right here in front of me. Thanks, Yolanda. We have a conflict, I believe, with the school board and the Leon County Commission's budget hearings on September 16th. So we're looking to move our September meeting a day before September 15th, which is on a Monday. Right in front of me.
Thank you.
Okay. We've heard the executive director's report. It's informational only, so we don't have to act on it. And right now, do we have any issues with the change in date of the meeting?
Question, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Greg, do we know where we are in terms of the funding for Orange Avenue?
No changes really. You know, they put in additional funding for the section from Cypress Lake Road out to South Lake Bradford. But the section from Monroe to Cypress Lake, I believe, is at 90% plans. We actually had a discussion with the district about it last week, and like everything else, you're waiting for a significant amount of funding. 'Cause I believe that's about a $35 million right-of-way phase. I will tell you, we got some cost updates the last couple of days in relation to our priority project list that you all approve every year. And between Orange Avenue, Crawfordville Highway, the Leon section, and Woodville Highway, those projects are averaging about $23 to $26 million a mile for construction.
Yeah.
It just keeps going up and up and up.
Are we getting supplies from China or something?
I don't know. It's
It's just-
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions for the executive director? Greg, I'm sure you're following that, on our agenda, on the city commission's agenda tomorrow night, there's, some discussion about multimodal. Did you? I think there's an agenda item that was requested by, was it you, Commissioner Matlow? To bring back something regarding, multimodal, designation, I believe. Take a look, and if there's something that we need to be aware of.
Oh, the multimodal district.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure there'll be overlap. It's just an update on the success and impacts over the last 10 years of it.
Okay. All right. But no, thank you. I
Okay, so, just anything relating to transportation, I want to make sure
appreciate that.
you're aware. So if there's any impact.
Madam Chair, I
Mhm.
forgot to mention, we may cancel the May meeting, so we'll let you know in a week or two
Okay,
if we have any business that we need to take care of. We will definitely have a June meeting.
okay. The day before we're off, this May 20th is a holiday.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm. So you can go ahead on and you can take it on off.
Okay. More than likely, but I'm not saying yes yet. How about
Okay,
that?
just keep us posted. Okay, we'll move on to CRTPA information. So we dealt with the future meeting dates. Any other future meeting dates?
No, ma'am.
Okay. 10B would be dealing with any committee, CRTPA committee actions.
No, ma'am. That's just a follow-up on your TAC and CMAC
Okay,
committee action.
we have that. And C, budget utilization.
Just FYI.
And items from the CRTPA board members. Anyone have any items? We don't have anything about Southern Rail, didn't something happen across the street about that?
Well, actually, I was going to wait till the end of session, but I will say that the Southern Rail Commission bill was filed in both the House and Senate chambers, and to our knowledge, this is the first time ever that we've actually had legislation for joining the SRC as a filed bill, which is great. In the House, we had a House member that introduced it and had it heard in committee. I was there to go ahead and provide some testimony to support it. It did pass, which is terrific. At this point, I think it's going to the House Commerce Committee. It hasn't been scheduled yet. So at this point in the legislative session, if you haven't gotten through many of your committees, it's not looking very good. But I will say that I consider this a victory because we did have the bill filed, both House and Senate, and we did get it passed out of one committee in the House. That means that we can build upon that for the next legislative session. So I think we made some good, solid progress this year, and we'll keep on pushing. Usually, a lot of legislation takes 2-3 years or more to get through sessions before you actually see the bill adopted and then so we're moving along.
Was there no movement in the Senate?
We're moving in the Senate. But I would say that we're on track for building upon this for next year. Yeah.
Track.
Yeah.
He heard it. Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm happy to say the Appalachian Regional Plan Council has completed their regional rural transportation plan that we've been coordinating on with the district for the past 2 years. So the ARPC region includes the CRTPA and then 5 rural counties to the west: Jackson, Calhoun, Gulf, Liberty and Franklin. So our staff has worked with stakeholders in those 5 counties over the past 2 years to identify transportation infrastructure projects, gone through a prioritization project, created a GIS layer that's online that folks can access, and we're in the process of entering into a maintenance contract with the district to keep the work moving forward. Emerald Coast, the regional council to our west, is about 2 years ahead of us, and this program's been very successful. So really happy to announce that, and that information can.
All right. Anything else? Hearing none? We stand in adjournment.